There's a photograph that has circulated among film lovers for decades. At first glance, it looks staged. Two men caught in a moment of absolute, uncontrollable joy. One of them is doubled over, his carefully maintained dignity completely shattered. The other stands beside him, wild-eyed and grinning, as if he's just pulled off the greatest prank in Hollywood history. Many people assume the image was doctored, touched up, manufactured for publicity. But here's the truth that makes it even more extraordinary. That photo is completely real. It was never edited. And the story behind it reveals something that no Hollywood press release ever could. That one of the greatest comedies ever made was built almost entirely on beautiful, glorious accident. Young Frankenstein wasn't just a film. It was a living, breathing experiment in controlled chaos, where the bloopers became the brilliance, where the mistakes became the magic, and where a cast of comedic geniuses stumbled their way into cinema history. Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the moments that never should have made it to the screen, and the one photograph that proves laughter, real laughter, cannot be faked. To understand why Young Frankenstein became something extraordinary, you have to understand a man at the center of it all. Gene Wilder wasn't simply an actor who showed up and delivered lines. He was a man who felt everything, deeply, visibly, almost painfully. He co-wrote the script alongside Mel Brooks, pouring his vision of a black-and-white comedic masterpiece into every scene. He fought for the musical number nobody believed in. He championed the absurdity when studios wanted something safer. He was, in every sense, the emotional heartbeat of the film. And then there was Marty Feldman, the wild card, the anarchist, the man whose enormous, unpredictable eyes seemed to be plotting something at all times. Where Wilder brought sensitivity and craft, Feldman brought pure, unfiltered chaos. Together, they created a chemistry that no director could have scripted. And Mel Brooks, watching from behind a camera with barely contained delight, made the single greatest creative decision of the entire production. He kept the camera rolling, even when everything was falling spectacularly apart. It started with a hump, not a scripted hump, not a planned joke, just Marty Feldman, quietly deciding one morning to move Igor's hump from one shoulder to the other, purely to see if anyone would notice. At first, nobody did. The crew carried on. The cameras rolled. And then Gene Wilder looked across the set, saw the hump sitting on the wrong shoulder, and nearly lost his mind trying not to laugh. That was the moment Feldman knew he had found his weapon. From that day forward, the hump migrated freely. Left shoulder, right shoulder, somewhere in between, and every single time, it sent the cast teetering on the edge of collapse. Audiences watched the film for years, thinking it was a carefully written sight gag. It wasn't. It was one man's quiet, brilliant mischief turning into one of the most beloved running jokes in comedy history. But Feldman was just getting warmed up. During the luggage scene, when the script called for a polite exchange about bags, Feldman leaned in with a sly, perfectly timed line that nobody had rehearsed. You take the blonde, and I'll take the one in the turban. Terry Garr nearly buckled. Wilder's jaw tightened in that unmistakable way, the expression of a man fighting his own face of control. They shot the scene over and over, and every single time, Feldman slipped a line back in, just slightly different, just unpredictable enough to detonate the room again. Mel Brooks didn't cut it. He didn't even hesitate. He kept every frame. Then came the word that stopped the production cold. In the sedative scene, Feldman was supposed to follow a relatively straightforward direction, but instead, he twisted the word into something unrecognizable. Sedative? That bizarre, unplanned pronunciation hit Wilder like a thunderbolt. You can see it in the final film. The split second where his professionalism wages war against his entire body, where his face cracks the edges and a laugh threatens to burst through. Fans debated for years whether the moment was scripted. The cast confirmed it wasn't. It was pure Feldman, improvising on instinct, and Wilder's barely suppressed reaction became the funniest part of the scene. The chaos wasn't limited to Feldman. Peter Boyle, buried beneath layers of monster makeup and a flat-topped headpiece, brought his own brand of accidental comedy to the set. During the now legendary putting on the Ritz sequence, a scene Gene Wilder had fought for with everything he had, a scene Mel Brooks had initially called too ridiculous to exist, Boyle missed his cues, garbled his lines, and bellowed the word Ritz in a booming off-key howl that reduced the entire cast to rubble. Wilder, The man who had staked his reputation on this absurd musical number working, stood there in his tuxedo absolutely helpless, shaking with laughter he could not contain. They shot again, and again. Every take dissolved into the same glorious disaster. Brooks eventually stopped trying to fight it and simply embraced what was happening around him, because what was happening was funnier than anything he could have planned. The set itself seemed to conspire against professionalism. A massive laboratory door jammed halfway shut, while Wilder was mid-scene, leaving him frozen in an awkward standoff with a piece of wood. Rather than stop, he leaned into it, feigning exaggerated frustration, wrestling with the door as though it were a personal enemy, and the crew watching from the shadows nearly gave themselves away, trying not to laugh out loud. The laboratory elevator wobbled dangerously during a scene with Terrigar, who let out a real scream of genuine terror that sliced through the take like a knife. Wilder and Feldman didn't miss a beat. They stayed in character and played the chaos as if it had been choreographed, turning a potential safety incident into one of the most spontaneously funny moments of the entire shoot. Even the props refused to behave. A candlestick simply vanished between shots, disappearing from one frame to the next with no explanation. A coffee cup migrated between hands, appearing on the left, then the right, then nowhere at all. During the grave robbing scene, a fake leg meant for a quick sight gag got hopelessly stuck in the set. Feldman, refusing to break character, committed entirely, pulling, twisting, grunting under his breath with increasing desperation, while Wilder stood beside him trying desperately to hold himself together. When the prop finally tore free and sent them both stumbling backward into the dirt, the crew erupted. Brooks watched it all from behind the camera and decided immediately that it was staying in the film. And then Feldman did something that nobody saw coming. Not even Mel Brooks. In the middle of a scene that was supposed to be eerie and tense, he tilted his head back and released a long, exaggerated wolf howl into the silence. The entire set froze for half a second, and then it exploded. Wilder collapsed. Gar lost herself completely. Even Peter Boyle, sealed inside his monster makeup, couldn't hold his expression. The take was ruined beyond saving. Brooks turned to Feldman afterward and didn't reprimand him. He encouraged him. He told him to keep doing it whenever the moment felt right, because that howl had done something rare and irreplaceable. It had made the entire room feel alive. By the time production was nearing its final weeks, something remarkable had happened. The film that was supposed to be a carefully crafted parody had become something messier and more honest, a document of real people genuinely, helplessly delighted by each other. Mel Brooks later admitted that some shooting days took twice as long as scheduled simply because Gene Wilder couldn't stop laughing. His own laughter, Brooks' laughter, the director's laughter, had bled directly into the microphones and forced the sound department to re-record scenes from scratch. He had become as much a part of the chaos as anyone in front of the camera. And that is precisely when someone picked up a camera, not to shoot a scene, not to capture a performance, but to document a moment. What they captured would become the photograph that fans would study and debate for decades. It was supposed to be a promotional image, a simple, composed publicity shot. Gene Wilder, the dignified Dr. Frankenstein, standing alongside his co-stars for the camera. But just before the shutter clicked, Feldman said something, one final unrehearsed, perfectly timed remark that nobody has ever fully confirmed or explained. Whatever it was, it destroyed Wilder completely. He doubled over, his entire body overtaken by laughter, his carefully maintained composure gone in an instant. Beside him, Feldman stood grinning, wild-eyed, unrepentant, delighted with himself. The photographer captured it anyway, and nobody edited it out. Nobody replaced it with something more polished or more dignified. The image went out into the world exactly as it was. Two men laughing in the middle of what was supposed to be serious, surrounded by the glorious wreckage of a joke that had just gone perfectly wrong. Mel Brooks saw the photograph and understood immediately what it meant. It wasn't just a funny picture. It was the entire film in a single frame. The spirit of Young Frankenstein distilled into one unguarded, unscripted, unedited moment of pure human joy. Behind every black and white shot, behind every piece of vintage laboratory equipment and every carefully crafted horror parody, there was a group of people who simply could not stop laughing at each other. And rather than hide that laughter, Brooks built the entire film around it. That is why Young Frankenstein has never aged. Not because the jokes are perfect, but because the joy behind them is completely, unmistakably real. You can feel it in every scene, in every barely suppressed smirk on Wilder's face, in every mischievous glance from Feldman's enormous eyes, in every moment where something went wrong and everyone chose, together, to keep going anyway. The photo was never edited. It never needed to be. Some moments are too honest to touch.